Commuters will face travel chaos on Wednesday with the first of 5 24-hour rail strikes set to take place. Unions have been looking for a pay rise of 3.75%, with management offering a one-year increase of 1.75%. Talks between management and unions at the WRC took place earlier this month but failed to reach an agreement.
The breakdown of the talks was very disappointing because we put an awful lot of effort into trying to construct a package that our members would accept, and to spend 12 hours in the WRC to have, as we call it, the rug pulled from under us at the last minute was totally unacceptable. And now that the company have treated us in this fashion, it's going to make it actually harder to come to a deal now at this stage.
At Connolly Station, commuters reacted to the imminent disruptions.
I think sometimes you have to stand up for your rights, and they have tried everything. I would be a strong trade union supporter.
I'll just be using the bus instead. Like, I don't think it'll affect me too much. I think it's important for workers to, strike if they think it's, needed, I guess. It's annoying when it affects public transport because it affects so many different people. But if you compare ourselves against, Paris, like, they have so many more strikes.
Well, I'm not a regular commuter, so it wouldn't affect me directly. But if I was a regular commuter, I wouldn't be too impressed, but then at the other side I can understand why they're striking, so I could kind of see both sides. But if it would affect me getting to work, obviously, I wouldn't be too happy.
Over 155,000 people a day are expected to be affected by the stoppages, costing the firm $900,000 per day. CEO of Irish Rail, Dave Franks, warned the workforce of 3,800 that they may scupper their chances of a pay rise if they continue with the rail strike. Shauna Cohn, DCUtv News. A dog is for life, not just for Christmas. That's the message from Dogs Trust as they launched their Pause for Thought campaign. Last year, 756 people contacted the welfare charity within the first 3 months after Christmas to relinquish their dogs. With over 1,000 abandoned dogs coming through Dogs Trust doors each year, they cannot keep up with the numbers. Their campaign urges people to pause and consider the responsibility dog ownership entails. The charity has dotted oversized paws graffiti across Dublin city centre and parks like this one in order to get people to think before they adopt.
Normally it boils down to the fact that they just haven't got time, or they didn't understand the commitment they were taking on. We'll often hear people say, oh, the dog got too big. There's no such thing as a dog that's gotten too big. A dog that hasn't been trained maybe seem too big because he's bouncing up and knocking things over, or that type of thing. But a well-trained dog, it really doesn't matter what size they are, because they're well-trained. They're not going to be doing all the little things they're not supposed to do. Sometimes people bring them back because they just haven't got time for them. Maybe their work shift changed, or they've had a breakup in their relationship, or their accommodation. Like, there's so many different reasons. But a lot of the time it will boil down to just people just didn't understand what they were getting into in the first place.
Dogs Trust Ireland has suspended adoption until the 3rd of January. Shauna Cohn, DCUtv News. German, Spanish, French and Italian. These are just some of the foreign languages students will be encouraged to learn under the latest Education Action Plan launched by the government. The plan sets out an ambitious roadmap to put Ireland in the top 10 countries in Europe for the teaching of foreign languages by 2026. Speaking at the launch, Taoiseach Leo Varadkar said it was a shame that many people in Ireland can only master one language, a viewpoint that many students in DCU share.
Yeah, well, I studied French in the Leaving Cert, and I didn't really take to it that much, but I was in Germany last week, and I definitely think that a second language would be very beneficial because, we're so isolated just speaking English. A lot of people speak other languages that aren't English, and when I was in Germany I really found it difficult at times.
Yeah, I do know another language. Well, I know conversational level of Spanish. I used to live there, so obviously I know a good bit. I do think it's important for people to even attempt to learn a little bit of another language. So yeah, I think it is. I think it's something that everyone should look into learning at least once in their life.
I kind of regret not taking up the language at university because I think if you ever want to work abroad, it's just really handy to have. And even, I don't know, when you go on holidays, I kind of feel really ignorant that you just know English and that's it, and no one knows any other language. And so, especially with my course, I had the option to take a language and I didn't, and sometimes I regret it not doing it, because then it could have widened the scope for possible future careers and stuff like that.
The announcement was welcomed by DCU's language school.
This is something that the language community in Ireland, the language professionals, researchers, teachers and so on, has been waiting for at least 30 years because there is no language strategy or language policy in Ireland.
As Ireland and its economy build closer links with Europe, knowledge of foreign languages will be crucial.
Companies need to have people who can engage with Europeans and beyond if they really want to export, for instance, because this idea that the world speaks English, so you don't need to speak their language, this is, it is a myth, really.
The strategy for the teaching of foreign languages is set to change dramatically, with 20% of all higher education students learning a language as part of their course by 2026. Shauna Cohn, DCUtv News. Construction work on DCU's new student centre is still underway. The €14 million project began in June 2016 and was originally aimed to be finished in February. With delays due to recent snow and crane drivers going on strike, the construction will not be finished by the end of this academic year. While the reality of a new hub is welcomed by students, the transformation of Glasnevin campus into a construction site has significantly impacted club and society life.
For some certain societies like dance have lost their dancing spaces. The Sober Sock found it harder to hold their events. The Mental Health Society couldn't hold the tea and coffee mornings, and they had to use smaller classrooms in Henry Grattan or other buildings, which kind of took it away from the students, and I suppose they didn't get as many students partaking in it, and we also couldn't have our refreshers fair there. And as well, balls have suffered. Thankfully, we were able to hold the Halloween ball in All Hallows across the road here from Pat's, but for smaller clubs and socks, they couldn't hold their balls, and that, like, we've seen so many balls have to be cancelled during the year because they had to go out to hotels, which cost more, and they didn't get the ticket sales, unfortunately.
For final year students who hope to get a glimpse of the new hub before leaving DCU, a soft opening of the ground floor may go ahead before the end of the semester.
Talks of a soft opening at the end of the month. Obviously, you can look outside, it doesn't look like they're near a soft opening. We're still hoping that there will be something, and it will be something just for the final years to be able to go in and say, look, I was part of this, because realistically every student in DCU has contributed towards it. With the hub fee, and I think that it's really important that everyone feels like it's their space.
The summer ball, which traditionally marks the end of the academic year, was planned to be held in the new student hub. However, it will now be held in an external venue for a second year. Shauna Cohn, DCUtv News. Good evening and welcome to DCUtv News. I'm Shauna Cohn, and today we'll be looking at the top stories from across the university over the last 2 weeks. We will also be looking at national news stories that directly affect DCU students. Our first story this evening, Health Minister Simon Harris says he will offer every student nurse and midwife a full-time and permanent job once they graduate. Our reporters Ashley Nolan and Rachel Martin spoke to some of DCU's nursing students about the announcement. Ireland is now the top producer of plastic waste in the European Union. With Ireland's waste and plastic levels increasing, DCU Sustainability Living is campaigning for a plastic-free campus. Helen O'Neill and Amy Murphy report. DCU was granted the status of University of Sanctuary in December 2016. The college has provided 15 scholarships for Irish-based refugees and asylum seekers since September. Michelle Townsend and Alex Dunn report. The independent radio sector has received a boost, with Communications Minister Denis Naughton making a number of significant changes. Zoe Ryan reports. The annual Cracking Up event organised by DCU's Mental Health Society was held in the city earlier this month. Our reporter Karen Gaffney went along to see what all the crack's about. That's all for this week. Remember, you can keep up to date with what's going on through our Facebook page. I'm Shauna Cohn. Good evening. I'm here on DCU's Glasnevin campus, where excitement is building for the upcoming student union elections. With voting commencing soon, I sat down with Clubs officer Thomas Dorian, who hopes to be re-elected again for a second term. He is the sole candidate running for the position of Clubs officer, and I sat down with him to see why he's running again. So Thomas, you're the current Clubs officer for this academic year and you're hoping to be re-elected?
Yeah, that's right.
So can you tell me some of your achievements over the last number of months?
So since I came into this position, I've had the 2 Give It a Go weeks. I've had copper detox jogs on St. Pat's campus, and hopefully we'll have them in Glasnevin soon. And same with cookery classes. Myself and some students and staff done a cookery course in semester 1, and then it's on campus in semester 2.
You mentioned in your manifesto a lack of club committee training. Now, like anything, training is so important. How can you ensure that this won't occur again?
Well, training is really important for the clubs to be run successfully. And up until last year, there was the pod training that, quite frankly, made most clubs quiver. But I'm hoping to bring it back to basics, and I've already been talking to Siobhan Byrne, who's finance for clubs and socks, and Yvonne McGann, who is the sports development officer for the college. So over the summer we're going to put a plan in place that the CLC and SLC committees will be giving clubs and socks the training themselves, just to familiarise FD with each other and give high quality training.
You've spoken about the slow uptake of female participation, particularly for club sports. How can you tackle that?
So we generally see girls dropping out of sports when they're in secondary school and coming up to leaving cert and that. But I think sports for NMG is so important, like for mental health and exercise and good healthy living. But I'm going to have talks at the start of the year with sport personalities. This week actually, I have 3 celebrities as such coming in. So we've Rosemary Smith, who's an 8-year-old rally driver, who's fantastic. A staff member here, Fiona Hudson, who plays for the women's GA team, and Eve McChrystal, who's an Olympian. So these are 3 different women of all ages across different sports and different abilities to talk to our students and tell them the benefits of sport. So I'll be having more of that at the start of the semester.
Great. You'll also be going into your final year of college. You're quite fortunate enough to be able to learn from your mistakes. How do you think your workload will impact your role when going into final year?
Well, with my course there is very little of a change between workload in final year, and this year I spent a lot of time getting resources ready so that if when I am in the role hopefully next year I can just pull out stuff as we're going along. And like for me, we didn't really start until September. We're really come into this role during the summertime, and there's a lot of time lost there. So I'll hopefully work on that and be able to do more stuff during the summer, so it'll make my life a bit easier when we start back into college next year.
Another thing you've been very vocal about is your passion for healthy lifestyle, healthy eating. You've mentioned an idea about a bus running from Lidl from DCU. Could you explain how that might come about?
So we have a fantastic lecturer here in nursing, Tracy Harrington, and she got myself in touch with another student who's from another college who's currently doing a course in this college, and she was telling us that in her old college there was a Lidl bus. So Lidl paid for this bus to come down to their campus and bring the students up, and I know there's other candidates wants to do something similar. So I'll be working with Tracy and that student and James Gavin, who's the new head of sports and wellbeing, on being able to implement that for September, because on campus there isn't a great variety of fruit and veg for students, and I want to teach students on how to shop on a low budget but eat really healthily.
Brilliant, lovely. Thank you so much, Thomas, for taking the time out to speak to us today.
Brilliant.
Well, there you have it. That's what the sole candidate for clubs officer had to say. Voting commences this Wednesday, and make sure to keep up to date with DCUtv News coverage of the election. I'm Shauna Cohn for DCUtv News. I'm here on DCU Glasnevin campus celebrating International Happiness Day, and we're going around campus spreading happiness one lollipop at a time. So what makes you happy?
So doing photography, meeting up with my friends, sharing pictures, just doing spontaneous adventures.
Spending time with my friends makes me happy. We're actually in a pretty good mood today. The sun is shining, so that's making me pretty happy as well.
Spend time with my family, because I don't get to see them that often the way we all work. So I want to get to spend time with them.
Well, looks like my job here is done. I'm Shauna Cohn for DCUtv.